It is March 1997 in southern Albania. The city of Vlorë burns. Outside a military depot on the outskirts of town, thousands of civilians swarm the gates. Men, women, teenagers. They carry hammers, crowbars, bare fists. The Albanian army has already fled. No one guards anything anymore. Inside the depot, rows of Kalashnikovs stacked floor to ceiling. Chinese Type 56 assault rifles, crates of ammunition. A 17-year-old kicks open a wooden box and lifts an AK-47, the first gun he has ever held. Within 72 hours, over 100,000 weapons will vanish into the Albanian countryside. What happens next will arm a war in Kosovo, fuel criminal empires stretching from the Bronx to London, and create what the FBI now calls one of the most dangerous organized crime threats on Earth. But to understand how a nation armed itself overnight, we need to go back. To understand Albanian organized crime, you must first understand what these men were running from. Albania emerged from World War II under the iron grip of Enver Hoxha, a Stalinist dictator whose 41-year regime would become the most repressive in Europe. Hoxha sealed Albania's borders, shot anyone who tried to leave, and built 750,000 concrete bunkers across a country smaller than Maryland. He broke with Yugoslavia, then the Soviet Union, then even China. By 1978, Albania stood completely alone, a hermit state in the heart of Europe that earned comparisons to North Korea. In 1967, Hoxha outlawed religion entirely, declaring Albania the world's first atheist nation. The secret police, called the Sigurimi, monitored every conversation, every friendship, every whisper of dissent. Families were imprisoned for decades over suspected disloyalty. An estimated 5,500 were executed under his rule, though unofficial numbers suggest far higher. This was a nation built on paranoia, isolation, and terror. When Hoxha died in 1985, Albania was economically shattered. The average monthly salary hovered around $80. The infrastructure was crumbling. An entire generation had never seen the outside world. But one thing survived the communist years: Besa. The word translates roughly as pledge of honor, but its meaning runs deeper. Besa appears in the Canon, a code of traditional Albanian law dating back to the 15th century. Originally passed down through oral tradition, Besa governed everything from hospitality to vengeance. When an Albanian gives his Besa, he has given his life. The oath is sacred, inviolable. Albanians would die rather than break it. This code created bonds stronger than any legal contract. Criminal gangs formed by men who were related or who had known each other since childhood. Betrayal was almost unthinkable. The same loyalty that once protected villages from invaders would soon make Albanian organized crime nearly impossible for law enforcement to penetrate. When communism collapsed in 1991, Albanians flooded into the streets celebrating. They dreamed of Western prosperity, of finally joining the modern world. What they got instead was chaos. Unemployment exploded. Government services vanished. The economy cratered. Into this desperation came the pyramid schemes. Companies with names like Vefa, Yalika, Populi, and Jaferi promised monthly returns of 10 to 25%. To a population with no experience of capitalism and no functional banking system, the offers seemed miraculous. 2/3 of Albania's 3 million citizens invested. Families sold their homes. Emigrants working in Greece and Italy wired their savings back. At their peak, the schemes held liabilities totaling $1.2 billion, nearly half the country's entire GDP. Government officials attended company events. President Sali Berisha defended the schemes publicly. The International Monetary Fund warned of catastrophe. Berisha accused them of interfering in Albanian affairs. The young men who would later terrorize New York's underworld were watching. Men like Alex Rudaj, who had already immigrated to America, like the Kranishi brothers, who would build drug empires, like Kuchtim Lika, who would become one of the FBI's most wanted fugitives. They understood something fundamental about their homeland. In Albania, the government could not be trusted. The economy could not be trusted. Only blood and Besa endured. And in January 1997, the pyramid schemes began to collapse. On November 19, 1996, a pyramid scheme called Sude defaulted on its payments. The collapse had begun. Within weeks, the dominoes fell. Gialika, one of the largest schemes, had taken in $850 million from 170,000 investors. When auditors examined the books, they found assets worth just $3 million. The owners fled to Turkey, taking at least $17 million with them. Khaferi and Populi followed into bankruptcy. By January 1997, the schemes that had promised Albanians instant wealth were revealed as hollow shells. The numbers were staggering. Families who had sold their homes now had nothing. Emigrants who had wired their life savings from Italy and Greece watched everything evaporate. An estimated $1.2 billion had vanished from a country where the average annual income was under $1,000. The streets erupted. On January the 24th, 1997, in the southern city of Lushnje, thousands march on City Hall. They demand their money back. They demand the government answer for endorsing the schemes that destroyed them. The protest turns violent. Police are routed. The City Hall burns, along with the cinema next door. This is no longer a demonstration. This is the beginning of a rebellion. The unrest spreads south to Vlora, to Fir, to Gjirokasta. By late February, university students in Vlora launch hunger strikes. Thousands surround campus buildings to protect them from rumored government raids. In Shkoda, the mayor publicly supports the protesters. President Berisha's government is losing control. On March 1st, Prime Minister Alexander Meksi resigns. The next day, Berisha declares a state of emergency. It changes nothing. The South is already ungovernable. Local groups calling themselves Salvation Committees begin seizing government functions. They collect taxes, organize defense, distribute food. In some areas, they are affiliated with the opposition Socialist Party. In others, they answer to no one. The Albanian state is fragmenting in real time. Police officers abandon their posts. Soldiers desert by the hundreds. The institutions that held the country together are melting away. And in the chaos, certain men see opportunity. Albanian criminals had been active in Western Europe since the early 1990s. They worked the margins at first, serving as foot soldiers for established organizations. In Italy, they partnered with the 'Ndrangheta, the Calabrian Mafia that controlled much of Europe's cocaine trade. The Albanians learned the business from the inside. They ran drugs, provided muscle, carried out the violence that more established criminals preferred to outsource. Albania's geography made it perfect for trafficking. Situated between the heroin-producing regions of Afghanistan and Turkey and the wealthy consumer markets of Western Europe, the country became a critical node on the Balkan route. Drugs flowed west, money flowed east, and the men who controlled the flow grew powerful. By the mid-1990s, Albanian criminals were no longer just employees. They were building their own networks, establishing their own supply chains. What they lacked was firepower. Across the Atlantic, a parallel expansion was underway. Albanians had been settling in New York since the 1960s, concentrated in Italian neighborhoods in the Bronx. For decades, they remained small-time, running burglaries and robberies, working as muscle for the established Italian families. The Gambinos used them as enforcers. The Lucchese's employed them as hitmen. The Albanians learned American organized crime the same way they had learned the European drug trade. From the inside, waiting for their moment. Men like Alex Rudaj, an ethnic Albanian from Montenegro who arrived in 1987, started as Gambino associates. He watched how the Italians operated, studied their hierarchies, noted their weaknesses. By the early 1990s, he had begun assembling his own crew. Albanians, Greeks, Italians, Arabs, men bound not by ethnicity alone, but by loyalty, by Besa. They called themselves the Corporation. They were patient, they were violent, and they were waiting for the old order to show cracks. In March 1997, as Albania descended into anarchy, those cracks split wide open. The government had lost the South. The army had collapsed. And in military depots across the country, enough weapons to arm a small nation sat unguarded. The looting was about to begin. The week of March 8, 1997. Albania crosses the point of no return. In Vlorë, the rebellion's epicenter, government authority has completely evaporated. Police stations stand empty. Army barracks sit abandoned. The soldiers who have not deserted have stripped off their uniforms and melted into the civilian population. There is no one left to guard anything. The military depots are massive concrete structures, relics of Enver Hoxha's paranoid fortress building. For decades, the dictator stockpiled weapons against an invasion that never came. Chinese-made Kalashnikovs, Soviet SKS rifles, German MP-40s from World War II, crates of ammunition stacked in underground bunkers, anti-tank weapons, machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades, more than enough to arm every man, woman and child in the country several times over. On March 9, the first major depot falls. Crowds gather outside a military installation near Vlorë. There are no guards, no resistance. Someone cuts the fence. The crowd surges forward. Within hours, the depot is stripped clean. The scene repeats across southern Albania. In Saranda, civilians arrive with trucks and begin loading weapons by the ton. In Gjirokasta, teenagers walk out carrying assault rifles over their shoulders. In Tepelina, families pick through ammunition crates like shoppers at a market. There is no organization, no coordination, just thousands of desperate people grabbing whatever they can carry. A 17-year-old named Ketul Manoku, who will later be convicted of murder in Michigan, watches his neighbors arm themselves. One day, he is sitting outside a mechanic shop. A car pulls up. A man inside brandishes an AK-47 and shoots his friend dead. right there on the street. This is Albania in 1997. This is the world that will shape Manoku into a killer. The official count will later record 656,000 weapons looted. Other estimates suggest 750,000. The numbers are almost incomprehensible. 1.5 billion rounds of ammunition, 3.5 million hand grenades, 1 million landmines, anti-aircraft guns, mortars, even surface-to-air missiles vanish into private hands. In one surreal incident, looters in the south hook a truck to a MiG-17 fighter jet and simply drive away. They have no way to fly it, no one to sell it to. They take it anyway. 2 Albanian Air Force pilots defect entirely, flying their planes across the Adriatic to Italy and claiming they were ordered to bomb civilians. As the South falls, President Berisha makes a fateful decision. On March 12, he orders military depots in the north opened to his supporters. His justification is defense. Arm the loyalists to protect against the southern rebels. The result is catastrophe. Now the entire country is armed. Conservative estimates suggest every Albanian male over the age of 10 possesses at least one firearm and ample ammunition. The violence explodes. Over 2,000 people die in the weeks that follow. In the village of Salit, near Burrel, a group of looters breaks into an arms depot on April 29. Something detonates. The explosion kills 22 of the village's 200 residents, most from the same family. Similar blasts occur across the country as unstable munitions detonate in inexperienced hands. Mass emigration begins immediately. Over 15,000 Albanians flee to Italy alone, crossing the Adriatic in fishing boats and ferries. Foreign nationals evacuate. Embassies close. The international community watches in horror. On April 15, Operation Alba begins. 7,000 Italian-led troops deploy under UN authorization to restore order. They secure Tirana, the ports, the main roads. But they are far too late. The weapons are already gone, dispersed into private homes, buried in fields, smuggled across borders. The guns flow outward like water finding cracks. Thousands of weapons cross into Kosovo, where the Kosovo Liberation Army has been fighting Serbian forces with limited success. Before 1997, the KLA numbered perhaps 200 fighters. After the Albanian depots open, their ranks swell into the thousands. The weapons that will fuel the Kosovo War, that will draw NATO into bombing Serbia in 1999, come largely from these looted stockpiles. More weapons move into Macedonia, Montenegro, Greece. Italian criminal networks receive shipments across the Adriatic. The Balkan route, already established for drug trafficking, now carries military-grade firepower in both directions. For Albanian criminals, the collapse is a transformation. They no longer need to borrow muscle from the Italians. They no longer need to purchase weapons on foreign black markets. They have their own arsenals now, their own supply chains, their own generation of young men traumatized by chaos and trained in violence. In June 1997, elections are held amid the ruins. The Socialist Party takes power. A semblance of order returns. But Albania will never be the same. The pyramid schemes had promised wealth. Instead, they delivered something far more valuable to criminals: an entire nation's arsenal dispersed into the hands of men bound by Besa and hungry for power. The Albanian Mafia, as the world would come to know it, is born. The weapons changed everything. Before 1997, Albanian criminals in America were muscle for hire. They worked for the Italian families, ran errands, collected debts, did the violent work the established mobsters preferred to delegate. After 1997, they became something else entirely. They had their own firepower now, their own supply chains, their own networks stretching from Tirana to Toronto to the Bronx. They were ready to compete. Alex Rudaj moved first. The ethnic Albanian from Montenegro had spent a decade learning the American underworld from inside the Gambino organization. By the early 1990s, he had assembled his own crew, a multi-ethnic operation he called the Corporation: Albanians, Italians, Greeks, Arabs, men bound by Besa and a willingness to use extreme violence. Throughout the late 1990s, the corporation expanded aggressively. They seized gambling operations across the Bronx, Queens, and Westchester County. They muscled into territories controlled by the Italian families, something previous immigrant gangs had never dared attempt. On August 3, 2001, Rudaj led 6 armed men into Soccer Fever, a Greek social club in Astoria, Queens. The club was controlled by Lucchese associates. Rudaj's crew beat patrons with pistols, overturned gambling tables, grabbed cash. The message was clear: the Albanians were no longer employees. Weeks later came the gas station standoff. Gambino acting boss Arnold Squitieri arranged a meeting at a rest stop on the New Jersey Turnpike. He brought 20 armed men. Rudaj brought 6. Squitieri told him the expansion was over. Both sides drew weapons. Outnumbered more than 3 to 1, Rudaj's enforcer Nicola D-Day pointed a shotgun at a gas pump and threatened to kill everyone present. The Gambino backed down. In 2003, Rudaj walked into Rao's, the legendary East Harlem restaurant, and demanded John Gotti's old table. When refused, he returned with 20 men. The table became his. The FBI was watching. On October 26, 2004, agents arrested Rudaj and 21 associates. It was the first federal racketeering case against an Albanian criminal enterprise in American history. Prosecutors called the corporation New York's 6th crime family, standing alongside the Gambino, Genovese, Lucchese, Bonanno, and Colombo organizations. In June 2006, Rudaj received 27 years in federal prison. His co-leader, Nardino Colotti, received the same. The corporation collapsed, but the Albanian networks it had pioneered were just getting started. In New Jersey, Kujtim Lika and Maifit Dika built a sprawling drug operation. The FBI's Operation Black Eagle, the largest infiltration of Albanian organized crime in bureau history, spent 4 years tracking their network. Heroin smuggled in shipping containers, ecstasy from the Netherlands, oxycodone diverted from pharmacies. 26 defendants were ultimately charged. Lika fled to Toronto and evaded capture until 2012. Across the Atlantic, Albanian criminals had become Europe's dominant trafficking force. They controlled up to 40% of the heroin market in Western Europe. They forged direct relationships with Colombian cocaine cartels, bypassing their former Italian partners entirely. Europol designated them one of the 5 most threatening criminal organizations on the continent. The weapons from 1997 kept surfacing. Kalashnikovs looted from Albanian depots appeared in crimes across Europe for decades. As of the 2020s, an estimated 60% of the stolen arsenal remains unaccounted for. Over 200,000 weapons still circulate in civilian hands. The code of Besser that made these organizations so effective also made them nearly impossible to dismantle. FBI agents who had spent careers breaking the Italian Mafia found Albanian groups impenetrable. There were no informants, no cooperators. The loyalty was absolute. Today, Albanian organized crime operates on 6 continents. They move cocaine through Rotterdam and Antwerp, heroin through the Balkans, cannabis from industrial farms in Albania itself. The FBI calls them one of the fastest-growing criminal threats in the world. The pyramid schemes took everything from Albania. The Mafia took it back. In 1997, Albania's pyramid schemes promised its people instant wealth. Instead, they delivered something far more valuable to criminals: an entire nation's arsenal. From those looted depots came the weapons that armed the Kosovo Liberation Army, fueled a generation of drug traffickers, and built what the FBI now calls one of the most dangerous criminal organizations on Earth. The schemes collapsed. The Mafia rose.